In energy imports, 25% on everything else from both Mexico and Canada. Also, under the Economic Emergency Declaration, moving China tariffs up by another 10%. If this is a negotiating tactic, as some have suggested, there isn't much time. The import taxes kick in just over 15 hours from now, midnight Eastern. Marketplace's Nova Safo has more.
The tariffs President Trump announced affect a far bigger chunk of the U.S. economy than the ones he imposed during his first term.
It was larger and more forceful than we were expecting in our baseline forecast.
Kathy Bosjancic is chief economist at Nationwide Financial.
So depending if they actually do get enacted and you see Canada and Mexico retaliate as they've indicated they would, that could shave about 2 full percentage points off of GDP growth.
That means the economy could see almost no growth this year and could potentially even dip into recession, including job losses. Inflation could increase perhaps about 0.6 of a percentage point, and in some areas, prices would rise far more than in others.
For instance, for auto prices, we could see a jump of 10%.
Grocery prices could rise, so could prices at the pump. A rise in lumber prices could increase the cost of building homes. Smartphones and other electronics made in China could become more expensive. In general, analysts say the new tariffs are likely to cost American households about $1,000 to $1,200 a year. The president's order also removes an exemption which allowed packages worth less than $800 to come into the country tax-free. That means those purchases from Temu and Shein and other low-cost Chinese retailers will face import taxes for the first time. I'm Nova Safo for Marketplace.
How this plays out in financial markets, stock index futures are down sharply but not crashing. The widely held S&P 500 index is down 1.6%. The futures are. The NASDAQ futures are down 1.8%. Dow futures are down 1.5%, implying a drop of something close to 600 points at the official open in just over half an hour. The VIX index of stock market volatility up 21%. With higher tariffs, stock in German car companies down 5.7% for VW. BMW stock down 3.6%. The bond market here is up, with treasuries seen as a safe haven amid turbulence. The 10-year interest rate is down at 4.51%. The dollar is up about 1% to the euro, in part on the assumption that high import taxes will bolster inflation. It's up 1.6% to the Mexican peso, and it costs 1.47 Canadian dollars to buy a U.S. dollar, the lowest for the Canadian loonie in 22 years. The price of gold up 2% in a week. Marketplace's Mitchell Hartman has that.
London and New York are hubs of the global gold trade. Jacob Kierkegaard at the Peterson Institute for International Economics says New York has the futures market, while
most of the physical gold is still stored with the Bank of England.
The Financial Times reports so much gold has been shipped to New York recently, there's a shortage in London. Kierkegaard explains U.S. tariffs on imported metals could be coming soon. If you're a company that wants to hold gold as a safe haven or needs it for industrial uses,
you have an incentive to move it inside the United States rather than in a vault in London.
This geographic shift doesn't explain why the price of gold is up. High U.S. interest rates and a strong dollar usually depress gold, says Rob Hayworth at U.S. Bank. But
think about tariffs and sanctions and other restrictions on global trade. We could continue to see global central banks diversify their reserve holdings into gold,
which could push the price of gold even higher. I'm Mitchell Hartman for Marketplace.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Rubrik. When cyber attacks come for the cloud and threaten business operations, Rubrik gives you the power to bounce back fast. More at Rubrik.com. And by Progressive Insurance, the Name Your Price tool.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our February 3rd, 9 a.m. informal session of the Roanoke City Council. I'll ask our clerk, Ms. McCoy, to please call the roll.
Vice Mayor McGuire.
Here.
Mr. Nash.
Here.
Mr. Volleson.
Here.
Mr. Hagan.
Here.
Ms. Sanchez Jones.
Here.
And Mayor Cobb.
Here, and we are all present. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. It's good to see you all. Happy Black History Month. Happy Lunar New Year. Lots of exciting things happening in and around the city, and it's good to see you all today. We have a very full day today, so we're going to move right into our morning agenda. We have several items for action. The first is a communication from myself requesting that council convene in a closed meeting to discuss vacancies on certain authorities, boards, commissions, and committees, and I need a motion and a second.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Vice Mayor McGuire.
Aye.
Mr. Nash.
Aye.
Mr. Volleson.
Aye.
Mr. Hagan.
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez Jones.
Aye.
Mayor Cobb.
Aye, and the motion passes. The second is a communication from myself requesting that council convene in a closed meeting to discuss the selection of a candidate for the interim city council member position. I need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Vice Mayor McGuire.
Aye.
Mr. Nash.
Aye.
Mr. Volleson.
Aye.
Mr. Hagan.
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez Jones.
Aye.
And Mayor Cobb.
Aye, and the motion passes. The third item is a communication from the city attorney requesting that city council convene in a closed meeting to consult with legal counsel regarding actual litigation where such consultation or briefing in open meeting would adversely affect the negotiating or litigating posture of the public body. And this also is pursuant to Section 2.23711A7, the Code of Virginia, as amended. I need a motion and a second.
So moved. Second.
Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Vice Mayor McGuire.
Aye.
Mr. Nash.
Aye.
Mr. Volleson.
Aye.
Mr. Hagan.
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez Jones.
Aye.
Mayor Cobb.
Aye, and the motion passes. Our final item is a communication from the city manager requesting that city council convene in a closed meeting to discuss the disposition of city-owned property where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body, also pursuant to Section 2.2-3711A3, Code of Virginia, as amended. And I need a motion and a second.
So moved. Second.
Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Vice Mayor McGuire.
Aye.
Mr. Nash.
Aye.
Mr. Volleson.
Aye.
Mr. Hagan.
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez Jones.
Aye.
And Mayor Cobb.
Aye, and the motion passes. Thank you all. We all have before us the council agenda for the upcoming 2 o'clock meeting. Are there any additions or deletions from anybody? Okay. Any additional topics for discussion? Okay. We've been requested by the city clerk to submit topics for discussion at the joint meeting of City Council and the Roanoke City School Board, which will be held on Monday, March 3rd at 9 a.m. Please submit those questions by February 14th. That will be your love letter, your Valentine to the clerk. City Council accepted statements of intent for a vacancy on City Council created by the resignation of Joseph L. Cobb, which term of office runs through December 31st, 2026. Council received 11 statements of intent from Manuel R. Dotson, James C. Martin IV, Kathy S. Cohen, Cameron Chase, William Hunter Hartley, Gregory L. Hunt, Ollie Howie, Patrice M. Hampton, Patricia White Boyd, Ryan Bell, and Evelyn W. Powers. The council will interview Kathy S. Cohen, Patricia White Boyd, and Evelyn Powers this morning. Following our informal session, those will begin at 11 a.m. right here in the City Council chamber. And they will be televised live on Facebook as well as RVTV. We have 2 briefings today. The first is from our city attorney, and I believe also Brandon Young from the Sheriff's Department. Thank you. Tim, welcome. Mr. Young, welcome.
Good morning, Mayor Cobb and members of City Council. This one should be rather brief. As you know, our sheriff has been good enough to work with our police department as we've gone forward, and we've had difficulty filling all of our positions in the police department. The sheriff's office has been willing to help with law enforcement duties downtown. Now, our code specifically states that when we have to tow vehicles, that the police can do things. Well, sometimes it might be the sheriff moving forward, so these amendments are just to provide coverage so that, not that the sheriff's office is looking to have vehicles towed, but if they do, you don't want someone, what authority did you have to do that? We could argue, oh, they have authority through the police chief in his allowance, but this just clarifies it, makes it easier to do, and I think makes sheriff's office feel a little better. But
Well, as a city attorney spoke, our department does provide law enforcement services on a frequent basis to downtown Roanoke. The question of towing came up actually during the Dickens of a Christmas phase with all the preparations for vendors coming in and other things. Vehicles had to be removed, and we discovered that the city ordinance does not provide the sheriff's office the same provision to tow vehicles as the police department. So just to provide protection for our agency and for the city, we're requesting this ordinance change.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions?
It's about time.
I do have one question. So does this just apply to downtown, or is this throughout the city?
it would apply throughout the city, but it really is only going to come into view where they are doing law enforcement duties.
Okay.
This could arise around schools and other things, and we thought it best to just be broad. That way we can be flexible in our agreements and where the sheriff is providing these law enforcement duties.
And this addresses where, if a car or automobile is like derelict for more than, I think, 10 days or something like that?
Yes, but as the sheriff's office has noted, they're not looking to do that, but yes, that could potentially. And I think where we might more likely than not see that, that would be around schools, especially if it were inhibiting school traffic in some manner. I can see that coming up.
Okay.
And just as a reminder to council, this is just a briefing. We're not taking
Just
any
a
action on
briefing.
this
We
today.
want to get your feedback first, and then if you're okay with it, we'll bring it on the 18th for adoption.
All right. Any further questions or comments? Okay. Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Our second briefing today is regarding our fiscal year 25-26 budget and the process that we're in. And welcome and good morning,
Good morning.
Ms. Turner.
Good morning.
So, Mayor Cobb, Vice Mayor McGuire, and council members, this budget presentation is one of many. This is our first. And as we work to finalize a balanced budget, our budget methodology for FY26 is to budget expenditure projections and requirements based on trend analysis, like we looked over the last 5 years, and we want to make sure that we're budgeting as such. One in particular that we looked at was overtime. Overtime has trended significantly higher than we've budgeted in years past, so that would be something that's new. Now, while that's not the focus of this particular presentation, we did want to just kind of level set that the FY26 budget will reflect an overall very tight and difficult budget process. So this presentation will focus primarily on revenue projections for the general fund. This is an initial version based on our best information that we have at this time. Staff has taken a conservative stance and consistent with prior year's budget practice. We believe the projections are obtainable and realistic, providing the best available funding sources for our general fund as known today. Monitoring of current external influences, for example, the Federal Reserve actions related to interest rates, in its response to inflation and the impact of monetary policies, will be carefully watched, and any notable revisions will be made to these projections throughout the next 6 weeks. Another monitoring point for us is the General Assembly and its actions that may impact what has been historically provided to localities. Projections being presented today will be subject to the revisions as city finance staff move through February into March for additional data that will inform and either substantive revenue projections decisions and move our trends that underpin a particular revenue estimate. An example of this is our projections for sales tax specifically. For revenue that we do not have much in the current fiscal year because of timing for billing and payments, examples of such as the business professional occupational license or BPOL, and the personal property tax. We have relied upon discussions with our Commissioner of Revenue and prior year information for this first projection. Noting that in the case of personal property tax, as the underlying data file is received, this projection may well need an update prior to the March 24th recommendation to full council. I'd like to invite our senior budget analyst, Ms. Catron, to come and do the presentation, and she will be supported by our finance director, Ms. Margaret Lindsay.
Welcome and good morning.
Good morning, Mayor Cobb, Vice Mayor McGuire, and members of council. My name is Tanya Catron, and I'm a senior budget analyst within the Management and Budget Division of the Finance Department. During today's briefing, you will receive an overview of the initial revenue projections that the City of Roanoke expects to realize in the period from July 1, 2025 through June 30th, 2026, also referred to as FY26. The primary three areas in this briefing will focus on the FY26 budget development timeline and where we are at present, the city's most significant sources of revenue, and details of the FY26 general fund revenue projections. Over the course of the next few weeks, the budget development team has set aside time to brief you all as council on specific budget areas during our scheduled work sessions leading up to the presentation of the FY26 recommended budget of the city manager, with ultimately the adoption of the budget in May. As shown on the budget development timeline, today we will begin our discussions with the initial general fund revenue projections. This fiscal year 26 revenue projection summary table depicts at a high level the comparison of the adopted fiscal 25 budget versus the initial fiscal year 26 projections. The adopted fiscal year total general fund revenue budget was $379.1 million. The initial total projection for the FY26 stands at $402.3 million as of today. It should be noted that in working to determine the FY26 revenue projections, the same tax rates and service fees were used as those used in fiscal year 25. We are currently projecting a 6.1% increase or growth over the total FY25 revenue budget, or approximately $23.2 million. Of this projected increase, approximately $6.7 million will be added to the allocated amount that the city provides to the Roanoke City Public Schools in accordance with the funding policy. This formula provides the schools 40% of the city's local taxes, but does allow for certain reductions to those local taxes for district taxes and a portion of the transient occupancy taxes. For fiscal year 25, the city budgeted a transfer of funds to the schools of $106.9 million. Therefore, with the estimated additional $6.7 million of growth, the FY budget allocation to the schools is projected to be $113.6 million. As a result, the net general fund revenue or growth available for city operations during fiscal year 26 is projected to be $16.5 million. Local tax sources are comprised of the total of both general property taxes and other local taxes, and represent the biggest contributor to the city's general fund revenue budget at 69.8%, using the projected $402.3 million for fiscal year 26. The six most significant local tax resources are real estate, personal property, retail sales, food and beverage, business license, and consumer utility taxes. These top six sources average 93.5% of the city's total local taxes. Real estate tax is the single largest source of revenue for the city. Of total local taxes, it represents 47.2% on average. The tax rate is currently 1.22 per $100 assessed and was last changed in fiscal year 2016 when the rate was $1.19 per $100 assessed. Personal property tax is the second largest local tax collected by the city and represents 6.1% of the local taxes. The current rate is $3.45 per $100 assessed, and this rate has not been changed as far as I could go back, fiscal year 2006. The city's share of the sales tax is 1%, as the state receives the remaining 4.3% of retail sales, and this represents 11.1% of other local taxes. Prepared food and beverage taxes represent 8.3% of local taxes, and the current tax rate of 5.5% was last increased in fiscal year 2016 from 5%. Business license represents 6.7% of local taxes and depends on the gross receipts reported by the business entities. And consumer utility taxes represent 4.2% of local taxes, and the rate depends on the usage of electricity, gas, and water by the customer. So the fiscal year 2026 general fund revenue projections have been developed based upon the assumptions of past revenue trends and collection rates, current revenue recorded in fiscal year 25 through December 2024, consideration of local growth indicators, and keeping an awareness of potential impact on revenue received from the changes to the state budget and the changing economic landscape, as well as the fiscal and monetary policies at the federal level. This table shows 8 revenue categories that make up the total revenue fund, general fund revenue budget, as listed on the left-hand side. These include general property taxes, other local taxes, permit fees and licenses, fines and forfeitures, revenue from money and property, also known as interest earnings, intergovernmental, more commonly known as funds localities receive from the state or federal government, charges for services, and other. This table reflects by category the revenue recorded in fiscal year 24, totaling $376.8 million, what is currently budgeted in fiscal year 25 at $379.1 million, where we are in fiscal year 25 as of, again, December 2024, compared to budget at $145.3 million. Our initial estimate for fiscal year 26 at $402.3 million, and the increase of the fiscal year 26 over fiscal year 25 budget of $23.2 million, or again, 6.1% growth. We will look closer at the first two categories of general property taxes and other local taxes on the next two slides. But before moving on, I want to comment on the 74.2% increase in revenue from money and property category, or interest earnings. Prior budgets were significantly less than what was expected and actually achieved. If you look at fiscal year 24, the actual received was $5 million, and year-to-date fiscal year 25, we are at $2.1 million. In fiscal '26, we are attempting to more appropriately budget for the anticipated interest earnings. I would also like to comment on the $4.5 million increase in intergovernmental category, which is approximately 5.1% over fiscal year '25 budget. This category includes money the city receives from the state for items such as comp board payments for elected officials, VDOT street maintenance, and Department of Human Service Programs and CSA. So we're going to focus on general property taxes. So as you may recall from the real estate valuation presentation provided by Mr. Bratton, the Director of Real Estate Valuation, last month, the annual real estate assessments are to increase for fiscal year '26 by approximately 8.23%. Using the taxable assessments at the current rate of $1.22 per $100 assessed, and in consideration of the overall 97% collection rate, you will see an increase in the real estate tax revenue. This line also includes delinquent tax collections, resulting in an overall increase of $14.1 million, or 11.9%, over fiscal year '25 budget. We are conservatively estimating around 2% personal property tax increase for fiscal year '26, or $633,000. The Commissioner of Revenue's office is in process of reviewing data and will provide an update as when the work is complete. The Public Service Corporation's both real and personal property taxes is expected to increase $632,000, or 10.1% over fiscal year '25. Currently, we are projecting a slight decline in penalties and interest of $567,000, but once January 2025 data is available and we have an opportunity to review it, this projection may be revised. All right. Other local taxes are projected to see an increase of $2.4 million over fiscal year '25 budget, or a 2.4% growth, with sales tax, food and beverage, consumer utility taxes leading that growth. Revenue collected in this category experienced a timing delay, a month or so, and in the case of business licenses, we will see those collections come in early March. Likewise, for the bank stock taxes and motor vehicle taxes, we typically will see those dollars come in around the April-May timeframe. So, to look at the revenue increase composition of all the elements that make up the $23.2 million increase. And we've already touched on some of these already, but of the projected increase, we can contribute primarily to the increase again in real estate and personal property taxes of $15.4 million, retail sales, food and beverage, and consumer utility taxes of $2.1 million, and interest earnings of about $1.3 million. With the intergovernmental category, which is, again, money we've received from the state, we expect to see $3.3 million increase as reimbursements for DSS and CSA programs. And this is based upon actual fiscal year '24 spend. But we are closely monitoring the activity in the General Assembly for any impact to those projections. Also included in intergovernmental category is money we received from VDOT for street maintenance, and we are anticipating a conservative increase of $375,000 over fiscal year '25 budget. The remaining increase of $746,000 is the result of just the net result of various increases and decreases of other assortment of line items within the revenues. And just to recap, for the fiscal year '26 increase, our assumptions hold real estate tax at $1.22 per $100 excess, and it should be noted for any penny change in the real estate tax, the impact to the real estate revenue is $1.1 million. Again, there are increases to retail sales, food and beverage, consumer utility revenue are based upon consumer purchasing and usage and behavior of the consumer. Interest earnings are expected to remain elevated as a result of higher interest rates in the future. This also includes interest earned on ARPA funds, as complete drawdown of the ARPA funds will take place by December 31st, 2026. And again, these projections are still being reviewed, and as we get updated information in the upcoming weeks, including the review of January 2025 data, these projections will be updated as necessary. All right. So this concludes my briefing, but I'm happy to address any questions that you may have.
Well, first of all, thank you, Ms. Hayes. Excellent job. Excellent.
Thank you.
It's very comprehensive. I appreciate the detail and the projections of where we are. I'll open it up for questions that council members might have. Mr. Hagan?
Do we have any data on what a change in the tax rate for personal property, what the impact of that would be?
I don't currently have that on hand, but yes, we can certainly get that information for you.
Other questions? Mr. Nash?
I have a question. You know, I was looking at the cigarette tax, and I was like, man, I wish that was decreasing. But when it comes to the cigarette tax, what are vapes included in that? Like the sale of a vape, because a vape and a cigarette are technically different, but I'm just curious, are the revenues from that captured? Or is it literally just old school Marlboro cigarettes?
I am not exactly sure. Again, we can certainly look into that and give you an appropriate answer.
Okay.
I hate to answer that or try to provide an answer that
Absolutely.
I simply don't know, but certainly.
Absolutely. And
Yes.
I guess just to kind of clean my question up so you know exactly what I'm, kind of thinking about, is that tax capturing any product containing nicotine,
Okay.
that is smoked and inhaled? Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. We'll get back. Thank you.
Mr. Follison?
I just had a quick question about the other local taxes. What motor vehicle license, can you just break that, what is that exactly?
I think that used to be called the decal
Oh, so that's the
tax.
decal.
Yeah.
So that's not the personal property tax?
No, I think that's a separate,
Yeah,
because the personal
Okay.
property is.
All right, thank you.
Good question. Other questions or comments? All right. Well, Ms. Catron, thank you again for a great presentation, and to council for your questions, and I appreciate your follow-up on those, and we'll continue to follow this, and appreciate all of your hard work in the department.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
I believe those are all of our briefings for this morning's session. We will stand in recess for a closed meeting, and thereafter convene. We'll be back for our 11 o'clock interviews. We'll be interviewing Ms. Cohen, Ms. Powers, and Ms. White-Boyd, starting at 11 o'clock. And then we will be in recess until our 2 o'clock session. Thank you all.
Radio. If mileage has taken its toll over the years, donate that car, truck, or RV to this station. You'll help everyone put more miles on their radio with hours and hours of thought-provoking news and information. Here's how.
Go to radioiq.org. Click the vehicle donation banner at the top of the page.
The Radio IQ forecast. A very warm start to the work week. Pretty cloudy starting out today. Then more sunshine later on. Winds pick up a bit. Very warm. Highs in the upper 50s to mid 60s. 67 in Danville. Fairly clear tonight. Few clouds try to move back into western Virginia after midnight. Breezy as well. Especially along and west of the Blue Ridge. Lows in the mid to upper 40s. Possibly a shower or two in the southwest corner of the state starting out Tuesday. Otherwise, a mix of sun and clouds around the region.